water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when BookTok attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop it. But when the world needed her most, she vanished. I'm just fucking with you. I'm still here. Hi. Hello, I hope you're taking care of yourself. If you're new here, my name is Lexi, and I don't know what the deal is where you guys are right now, but in Wisconsin, it is currently like oppressively hot, at least for somebody of my fragile humors. And if I'm going to be locked up inside all weekend anyways, I figured that it's been a little while since I've done a reading vlog, and I love reading romances during the summer when it's warm and when I can be inside and use it as an excuse to not partake in outdoor activities. And where else would I go? Where else would I explore for recommendations apart from my TikTok FYP? It's the call of the wild. It beckons me. If you watch my videos, you already know my opinion on this, but I tend to think that BookTok can get a little bit too much flack. I think that from the outside, if you're just sifting through what gets to the absolute top, it can look a lot more monolithic than it actually is. And I have found a lot of my favorite books partially off of BookTok recommendations. However, I have also found a lot of my least favorite books off of BookTok recommendations. So you could say that it's pretty hit or miss. To kind of shake things up on the usual form, I thought that this time, for this video, it would be kind of fun to do one book that's been on my radar from 4 distinctly different subcategories of the romance world of BookTok. You know, it's the right time of year for another experiment. We're going to be starting off with the new Emily Henry book, Great Big Beautiful Life. I actually bowled this one up last week in like the very last frame to add to my TBR, but I have seen a lot of mixed reviews for her so far, so I'm not 100% sure what to expect going into this in terms of tone, but Emily Henry in general, to me, is modern contemporary romance. Like, she has been the moment for the past couple of years, at least in terms of popularity. I feel like she is what I think about when I think about a classic cartoon cover rom-com, so this feels like the obvious place to start. But yeah, it's summer, it's sunny, it's so hot, I feel like I'm on the verge of self-immolation, and hopefully this book will fix every single problem that I have in my life right now. We'll see. Sliding in real quick with a word from today's sponsor, which is ZEELOOL. The cool thing about cool glasses is
you can wear them outside. You can wear them inside. You can wear them at the park. You can wear them in your car.
And ZEELOOL has a ton of different options on their website. My favorite collection is this one, the Weekend Wear collection. You can easily add in your prescription when you're ordering online, and adding some of these frames into my rotation and styling outfits with them has been really enjoyable for me. ZEELOOL also sources directly from manufacturers, which is a massive advantage when it comes to ordering glasses online that makes them way cheaper than the stuff that you would buy at the eye doctor. Me personally, I never would have bought colored frames or anything really remotely fun or interesting from my usual optometrist, just because unless you're braver than I am, you can't wear them with everything. And why would you spend like $200 on something that you can't wear with everything, you know? But when your glasses are significantly more affordable, you get a lot more freedom to innovate and to actually use your glasses not only as a tool for accessibility, but also as a fun accessory, as like a fun focal point for your outfit. And also, you can wear them all day without getting dry eyes. If you are interested in giving ZEELOOL a shot, you can head on down to the link in my description to get 10% off your first order. And you can also check out their new ambassador program, which is pretty neat, especially if you're already a fan. And you too can have effortless style and grace, just like me. Thank you so much again to ZEELOOL for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Great Big Beautiful Life follows a journalist named Alice, who has spent most of her career kind of waiting for her big break that would justify her chosen profession to her family. And she finally feels like she's found it when she ends up tracking down this 80-year-old former super famous socialite named Margaret Ives, who had completely disappeared from the world 20 years prior. And for all anybody else knows in the media, she could be dead. She could be in witness protection. She could have like eloped to Bali. Nobody knows where she is. Nobody has talked to her at all since she disappeared. But when Alice finally gets into contact with her, for some reason, she seems finally ready to tell her life story. Obviously, this is kind of a big break. Alice can write this biography, bring honor to her family, also just work on a project that she's been really interested in for basically her entire life. So it all sounds great, except it turns out that when Alice gets there to the tiny island that Margaret lives on, there is another potential biographer that Margaret is interviewing. And she decides to make them compete for the role. She will talk with them both one-on-one, they'll go through their interview process or whatever, her, and whoever she trusts more at the end of 1 month together, that is the person that will be given the right ultimately to work with Margaret on this final book. So that's the first problem for Alice, and the second problem is that the other biographer, whose name is Hayden is not only a hyper-competent competitor, he like won a Pulitzer Prize for doing a different celebrity's biography, but also he's grumpy and really brooding and also really hot, but in an unconventional way. And oh no, what if we spend a bunch of time together in forced proximity on an island that's only like 6 square miles large and we accidentally really get along? What if we keep running into each other even though we're both kind of trying to avoid becoming that close, considering the fact that only one of us can actually secure a dream job and the other person might harbor a lifetime of resentment against that, you know? That's what this book is, that's the vibe. And I will say 2 things. For context, I am on chapter 12, so I'm like 120 pages in right now, and the people discoursing about this book on TikTok fully had me believing that there was like almost no romance inside of this. I just find that so funny. Like, I get why you would say that maybe in comparison to some of her other books, but this whole debate about whether Emily Henry still writes romance books or if she's just bridged completely into contemporary fiction, it felt dumb to me even when I was just an outside observer, but it is especially dumb to me now that I'm actually reading this book, because like they've already macked. Like, they're already making out. Easily half of the chapters are them interacting and like pining after each other. It's still definitely the primary plot. Like, it's for sure the main thing happening, both in terms of page count and like what you feel when you're reading the book. But with that said, to be fair to some of the discourse, even though I do think it was hyperbolic, it's definitely also true that more so than with her other books, this does have a more substantial B-plot. That relationship between Alice and Hayden does not exist without Margaret as the foundation, without her story that they're both hearing and working on and competing for. And she definitely feels a lot more important to the narrative than the other side characters have in the other Emily Henry books that I've read. And she has full chapters dedicated to her story and to her background as Alice continues to interview her, but she's not like a protagonist. I don't know why I was poisoned to believe that by the way that people were talking about this book online, but if you've also been kind of riding that wave, it's not true. The story is definitely still mainly about Alice. It just so happens that what Alice is doing is interviewing this woman to write her biography, so of course the woman is going to be important as well, you know? I also remember hearing that Margaret's chapters are boring, and to that I say, you are not nearly nosy enough. You're just not. You clearly do not have enough interest in the tea that we are slowly heating up on the stovetop right now. I have never listened to this podcast, so like this comparison like truly has no merit at all, but my best friend really likes normal gossip, and I feel like reading Margaret's chapters and the story of Margaret's family is giving me similar emotions to how my friend feels listening to that podcast. And it starts a little slow because Margaret doesn't have any trust at all for these random people that have like shown up at her home, but even from the jump, you still have these little nuggets of like, ooh, somebody joined a cult, ooh, somebody dies really tragically, and a bunch of ridiculous tabloid moments come out of it. I'm so sorry, but I will always have a meddling spirit inside of me. I will always be nosy. I will always just want to know what's going on. Anyways, I like it so far. Obviously, I'm having a good time. I feel like a lot of my opinion still remains to be seen with how everything kind of comes together at the end. That is the one thing about making a non-romantic part of the story so focal to the narrative. Everything has to go well in order for it to be a satisfying ending. Okay, I'm gonna keep going until the sun sets and the temperature drops by like 15 degrees and I can finally go outside to my car to get dinner. Not to continue beating a horse that is so dead genuinely that it's like rotting on the ground, but what rubric did we use? The faction of the internet that decided that this book wasn't a romance? Like what were the metrics? Did this rubric account for a 24-hour diner date in which they're both really tall and they end up like constantly touching each other under the table by accident? Did it account for that? Or like a man who yearns but knows not what to do with said yearning? Was nobody paying attention to when I say the sluttiest hug I think I've ever read in my entire life in a book before? Like was nobody paying attention to that when they said this book was not a romance? I genuinely don't understand how the discourse became what it became over the past month on this book. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Whoever on the internet was out here telling you that this book was not a romance, they are now your ops. They are now your enemies. You cannot trust them. You cannot trust them to have your best interests at heart because they're lying to you. They're outright lying to you. Whether you like the book or not, whether you like the dynamic of the romance or not, I don't understand how you could read this unless you've never read contemporary fiction in your entire life. Honestly, maybe that's what this is. Maybe because I read other books, I read other genres, it's just really obvious to me why this is not those genres, even though it has elements from those genres, but it's so a romance novel. Like point blank period. It's a romance. Okay.
we carry on.
I think she loves me because I'm her daughter, but I've never felt sure she loves me because I'm me. Does that make sense? I swear to God, Emily, when I catch you.
Okay, hello. It is the next day. I feel emptied. There's nothing left inside of me. I'm not sure there was ever anything inside of me to begin with, to be honest with you. But how do I feel about this book? Great question. Despite the tears that I did cry last night reading the ending, Emily Henry book, Don't Make Me Cry Challenge, difficulty level impossible. This is not my favorite book by her. Honestly, it might even be in my bottom 2. I don't know. We'll see. This is my Emily Henry ranking, by the way, if you're curious. I know it doesn't make any sense. Okay, you don't have to tell me that. I think that I'm probably going to end up giving this one 4 stars. So I liked it. I solidly liked it. I have really high expectations for Emily Henry novels, and this wasn't my favorite. I think that the biggest issue that this book had for me is that overall it just felt a little bit undercooked in a variety of tiny different ways. Without spoiling anything, Margaret's story inside of this book ends up feeling a little bit hurried and underwhelming by the end, in my opinion, even though the drama is definitely real. Like, there's a lot going on, but the way that her story is told is very detached and like journalistic throughout the book. I kind of interpreted it as you're reading Alice's notes that she's taking about the conversations she's having with Margaret. So they're all in third person, but even more than just them being in third person, they're written in a way that establishes this emotional distance between you as the reader and what you're reading about in Margaret's story. Almost like you're at a museum, and this is like the guided tour through that museum, and also the museum is Margaret's entire life and also the lives of her family before her. And importantly, I didn't hate this. Like, I still thought that it was juicy. Like I was saying earlier in this video, throughout the book, I still thought that it would get there by the end, even despite the emotional distance that you feel. And it kind of does, but not really. I think that Margaret's story stops a few on-page conversations before everything feels completely realized. In addition to that, in this book, the way that some of the other characters are handled, like sometimes a character will just go away because of something happening in the narrative, but then we never see the fallout. We never see the conversation that is happening between the two of them. Also, specifically with Hayden and his backstory and his conflicts, we're not seeing him actually confront his issues at any point inside of this entire book beyond just having conversations about them with Alice. And the skeleton was definitely there the entire time, but I think that a couple more intentionally placed scenes inside of this book would have brought everything together in a more satisfying way. But at the same time, I'm kind of conflicted because the actual ending of this book, like the last couple of chapters, chef's kiss. There's a reason why they hit so hard for me. And I don't know if like I'm fucking stupid or something, but for one, I was really surprised by how everything turned out, and I liked it a lot as an idea, but I also I wanted more from the reveals than we got. Again, like, we were told a lot of interesting things that are happening, but we're never really shown them on the page. We never actually see these characters dealing with the fallout of any of this, and I just feel like there could have been a way to create that same emotional impact that I did feel at the end of this book, while also fleshing out some of the other non-romantic elements of the story. And really just parts that weren't named Alice, because Alice was a good protagonist. I feel like her arc was definitely complete, but the other stuff, apart from that, I wanted a bit more from it than I think that we got. Regarding the comparisons to Evelyn Hugo that I've seen floating around for this book, obviously the premise seems kind of similar. Like, you have a journalist who's interviewing this reclusive, elderly former celebrity who might have secrets, who had a very dramatic life. But in my opinion, I feel like beyond just those very basic introductory facts of the situation, the actual stories are very different, both in terms of what is actually happening and also just in terms of the tone and how it's told. Because again, Great Big Beautiful Life is still primarily a romance, and it's also primarily from Alice's perspective. We're never in Margaret's head. We don't really know anything about her beyond what she's telling Alice. And Evelyn Hugo, in comparison, is almost like the entire book is from Evelyn Hugo's perspective, even if the vibe is that it's supposed to be orally told or whatever. It's written in first person. Like, Evelyn's humor, her thoughts, her feelings, her ambitions, etc. She is the main character of that book in a way that Margaret is not inside of here. And in her conversations with Alice, Margaret's personality isn't dry. Like, she's not a dry or boring character, but her chapters, which if I had to guess, it's like maybe 25% of this book at max, her chapters are kind of dry. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. They're just, again, they're written journalistically. But consuming Margaret's story, and also the role that Margaret's story plays in the overarching narrative of this book is just, it's so different from Evelyn Hugo, because in Evelyn Hugo is the main character. Like, that book is her story in a way that it's just not inside of this. And the reading experience is just, it's completely different. I think that trying to compare the two books, they're trying to accomplish such different things that there's almost no point, in my opinion. But when it comes to who would like this book and what to expect, despite the ambition of the B-plot, it still is in many ways just a classic Emily Henry novel. It has the same kind of quirked up internal monologue that all of her books have, other than maybe Book Lovers is a little bit different. And I hope I don't catch strays for that, because her protagonists are different. They act differently, they have different backstories, but their inner monologues are always very similar to me. And for me, this is a pro. I like the way that Emily Henry writes a rom-com protagonist, but you can't deny that they all have a very particular flavor to them. In this one, we're getting like the silly, goofy, kind of awkward optimist variant. Definitely a little bit less unhinged than Poppy, who is probably the most similar, but it's got that, it's got the banter that you've come to expect from an Emily Henry book, and the romance in this, I thought it was really good. It's definitely kind of an adult camp magic situation. Strangers to lovers, forced proximity, suddenly I'm just obsessed with you because I'm seeing you everywhere every single day. In a normal life situation, this might not exactly happen this way, but like, don't lie to me. You too would fall in love with somebody inside of these circumstances by being on this island and working on the same project. They're basically in the emotional pressure cooker of adult summer camp. So I didn't mind in this context that they were into each other pretty quickly inside of the book. It didn't really bother me. If anybody has made you expect that this book is in any capacity enemies to lovers, just because they are technically rivaling each other for this role to write this biography for Margaret, you are going in with the wrong impression. These are people who have never met before. But anyways, yeah, like the way that they fall in love, I get it. I thought it was tender. I thought they had great chemistry. I can definitely see why they would work as a couple. So I enjoyed that. I found the will they won't they of the romance to be a fun time. But in terms of, in comparison, how successfully the B-plot is executed, that is more open to interpretation. Thematically, it's still meaningful. It's a beautiful story that creates these very dynamic relationships between these characters and their partners and their families. But again, parts of it just ended up feeling kind of undercooked, especially coming from somebody who has read literary fiction, who has read other kind of family drama stuff that ended up feeling a little bit more poignant by the end. But regardless, I think that if you go into this book expecting that and knowing that it's a big part of the story, and really just knowing that this is a story about a journalist who is doing journalism, I feel like you probably won't be disappointed. Probably. But this is still a romance, okay? And anybody who told you that it wasn't is drunk. Like, they read this book drunk. But anyways, full pivot. Next up, we're reading Lights Out.
What do I know about Lights Out? Great question. What do I know about this book? Honestly, very little.
I've heard it's funny, which I always find a very interesting descriptor for dark romances. I know it's got some light stalking inside of here, but like in comparison, for example, to Haunting Adeline, which is a book that just, it radiates such a dark energy that I can't even bring myself to read it for this channel. I haven't really gotten that vibe from this book. Like it seems a lot more camp from the way that I've seen people talk about it on the internet, but also, you know, I've been wrong before. So we're gonna give it an old college try. We're gonna see what happens. The couple who slays together stays together. So true.
You have to respect a dark romance novel that has like approximately 20 different miscellaneous trigger warnings. They really do tell you what you're getting into. Like, you can't be surprised by what ends up inside of here. Unintentional cannibalism, in parentheses, remembered. Okay, cool.
So this book is fucking ridiculous. Premise of this book so far, basically you have a man who is, in addition to being the most competent hacker the world has ever seen, rivaled by no one, skill so incredible that it basically allows him to have no job because he's like that indispensable to the place that he works. If they fired him, he could just commit cyber warfare until they unfired him. So his job has infinite flexibility and therefore does not really exist, which is great because it gives this guy, whose name is Josh, by the way, it gives Josh the opportunity to pursue his true passions. And these passions are creating these really like edgy masked thirst traps on TikTok. He's got millions of followers. He's got all of the suburbanite wine moms scandalized and titillated beyond belief. And it reminds me of two things. I feel like there are two places that this just directly takes inspiration from. The first of which being all of the faceless and or masked YouTubers like Corpse Husband. That's really who comes to mind. And the second being the the strange obsession that Book Talk suddenly had on all of the men who ride motorcycles and would make videos wearing their motorcycle helmets so you couldn't see their face. Everything that I learned about that trend was against my will, but that's also what it reminds me of. It's like a combination of those two things. So yeah, that's what he spends his time doing, in part because he can't socialize without a mask with normal people, because apparently he is the spitting image of his dad, and his dad was like this world's equivalent of Ted Bundy. Super famous serial killer, presumably also kind of abusive and just an awful presence in Josh's life as well. But because he looks so much like him, it's like ruined his life a bunch of times. So now he doesn't go outside, and instead he just does all of this like masked content. And his roommate and his only friend, Tyler had been hooking up for some time with the female main character, whose name is Allie, but they've recently broken things off. And accidentally, through Tyler, who doesn't know, by the way, about the fact that Josh is a thirst trap TikToker with millions of followers, Josh learns that Allie, who he's always thought was kind of hot, is actually one of his biggest fans for his account. Dude, it's like getting so dark outside right now because of the rain, but honestly, this fits the vibe of this entire summary, so I'm gonna keep going. Because this man is this truly startling combination of, again, like the most intelligent, best ever hacker the world has ever seen. Nobody is as good as him, but also he's deranged, like he's actually insane. But also, tertiary to both of those things, he is interested in making sure that Allie does not do anything that she doesn't want to do. That is a real thing that he's trying to do, and it's not like a strong enough feeling to prevent him from, you know, breaking into her house, but if she had responded badly to that, he apparently would have stopped. So that's great. Also, this is literally all within the first 40 pages, so these aren't even spoilers. This is just the original initial setup. He breaks into her house and he films his weekly Thursday thirst trap on her bed. He posts it and she sees it when she's at work. She works as a trauma nurse and she's like, OMG, ha ha ha, that could be my bed. That's like the same comforter as the one that I have. How crazy. But then she gets home and she sees that he left behind a mask on her bed and she's like, oh, that's actually my bed, ha ha ha, that's actually my comforter. But turns out that she's into it. She's also a freak, which Josh ascertains because he's left behind a camera to like watch her reaction as she walks into her room and finds it broken into. And you know what? Honestly, good for her. Josh is a criminal. He's insane. Again, he broke into her house, but also, I mean, he did correctly predict that she would be into it. So if no one was harmed at the end of the day, was there even a crime? That's kind of like the vibe of this book so far. Other miscellaneous things to mention, Josh's ad online is just at the faceless man. He also bought her like a super expensive home security system because he was like, it's way too easy to break into your house and I can't let anybody other than me break into your house as well. So that's like coming in the mail right now. He's chivalrous, you know, he's well versed in the 5 love languages. Also, he apparently draws the line at watching her redact in the camera. He's like, can't be a sexual predator, gotta stop that, gotta maintain her boundaries. He literally says on page, he's like, and sure, she hadn't consented to me breaking into her house, filming a thirst trap inside her bedroom, sending her a sexually suggestive video, or watching her since she'd gotten home. But the line had to be somewhere, and sexual predation seems like a pretty good place to draw it. Wow, what a catch. There's also a vibe so far in his internal monologue that it's like his first day as a human being on Earth, and he's trying to like figure out if he does in fact feel human emotion like the rest of the Twitch chat. There's a lot of like, if crazy and evil, I would want to hurt her, but actually I just want to make her kind of scared because maybe she likes being scared. Maybe that means I'm not like a psychopath after all. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. It's like getting so dark outside, actually. I feel like the sun just set a full hour in advance because of the storm that's currently happening. I get the impression, at least so far, that this is going to be one of those dark romances that's just 75% smut and or thinking about smut, as opposed to, I feel like some of them have these really like ostentatious and zany plot lines that doesn't, at least so far, seem like what we're getting in here. But you know, too soon to tell. Who's to say? I'm only like 10% of the way through this book right now, giving you the summary, so I don't fucking know anything.
The power had cut off sometime during the night. Had he somehow triggered it and used the cover of darkness to sneak inside? No. It must have been a coincidence. He'd have to be a top-notch hacker to pull something like that off. Stop. Queen obviously doesn't know that she's inside of a dark romance novel. Literally every fucking dark romance man is a hacker. They're all fucking hackers. They're all on the dark web. They're all browsing on fucking Tor. They're all untraceable. They all get to launder whatever money they want and ruin their enemies. And also, despite the fact that they've dedicated their entire lives to becoming genius intellectual hackers, they also all have the necessary skill set to kill whatever enemies the female main character might have with their bare hands. I feel like if she just did a little bit of research on Wattpad, or she like clicked the screen names of the women who are commenting on this guy's video, who also have book emojis next to their usernames, I feel like it would give her a lot of the necessary information that she might need here.
Okay, two things. First of all, he does martial arts. He's a fucking black belt. This will not surprise anybody watching this video. I'm reminded in this moment of that clip of Jack Antonoff being like, I can fight. Second of all, I just find this so funny. The book is like strangely wholesome while also being absolutely deranged. Like, he is stalking her without her explicit consent. Boo! No! We do not approve of this behavior. However, I mean, obviously it's made better, first of all, by the fact that he's right that she is into it, but also B, they're like texting and he's watching her while she works a fucking 20-hour shift at the trauma ward in the hospital, and then he ends up coming to pick her up. He just pulls up and he starts her car before she gets out. He like turns on the seat warmer and he packs her fucking snacks with like apple slices and homemade trail mix, because this is domestic bliss, I guess, when you're a masked man on the internet. And then to make her feel better about the fact that she's, you know, getting into a car with somebody who is stalking her, that like, even though she's into it, she's not 100% sure that he doesn't just want her dead, which is fair, you know, like these are questions you would ask yourself in this situation. On the passenger seat, which again is being heated up by the seat warmer, there is also a knife and a gun that she can like use and have as weapons, so that way if he tries to kill her, she can just like shoot him, you know? So that's very chivalrous. And like, obviously she still should not get in this car. It's still, you know, not the best choice that she could be making for her health and or safety, but you have to admit that if you're going to have a masked man with 2 million followers who is also the greatest hacker the world has ever seen, and also a fucking like karate black belt or whatever, if that guy is going to be obsessed with you, it's nice that he's at least like thoughtful about it, you know? He is also asking her, like, just tell me to stop and I'll stop. And she never says to stop because, again, she is, in fact, actually insane. So it is strangely, again, consensual and thoughtful for being a stalker romance. And I don't know really what to do with that information. Okay, I actually forgot my tripod, so this is as good as you're gonna get. This is my like halfway-ish point update. I'm on chapter soon to be 16. Where do I start with this book? First of all, before I say anything, you have to understand that I have gotten through some unreadable shit. I have seen the trenches. I know what is really down there, because I'm sure that there's somebody in this world who has read this book and they're like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'll be the first to say that we should all be happy for that person. We should be glad that they have not had to experience the lows that we have experienced on this channel. Because in comparison to some of the other things I've read, this is low-key, it's kind of a fun time in the most absurd way possible. Like, does this book have really any literary merit at all? No. No, it does not. But the circumstances of the book are so ridiculous that I am enjoying myself. I am. I'll be the first to admit it. For being an absolute freak, Josh is he's so strangely earnest. The juxtaposition between him being this like little soft boy who wants to pack her sliced apples and bring her snacks and make her breakfast. Oh, he got her a new bed because they stabbed the old bed with the knife that they were using. What a shame. But then at the same time, you also have the fact that he just is what he is. He is the faceless man. And the book feels aware of that. Like, it feels self-aware of how ridiculous the entire circumstance of his character, of the relationship is. Basically, I respect this book. Honestly, this is what I assumed dark romance was like before I actually read any dark romance. And, you know, it's not completely my thing. Like, it's... But I get it, you know? Like, this is the kind of slop I feel like I understand. The girl main character, Allie, she's fine. I appreciate that she's not your typical, like, submissive, quiet princess dark romance main character, where just kind of the plot happens to her. Like, she definitely has more agency in this book, again, despite the fact that the whole thing begins with him breaking into her house and, like, putting...
Putting a hidden camera there. Despite that, this might shock you, but she actually does have a lot of agency as a character this entire time, and she's down at all times. Like, honestly, she reminds me a little bit of a more respectable Roxanne with two X's. They have the same kind of, if somebody tried to kidnap or murder me, I would actually be the one to beat them up with a baseball bat that I also stuck nails into. That's just the vibe that both of those characters kind of have. But Allie does have more thoughts. She has more of a backstory, although that is an extremely low bar, I have to say, given what Den of Vipers provides you with, which is nothing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want this to make it sound like I recommend this to the average layman, because the only people I would recommend this book to at this point are people like me with vaguely masochistic tendencies who just kind of want to see what the buzz is about, and who, in their hearts of hearts, yearn for the old days of like scrolling Wattpad long before they should have been scrolling Wattpad and seeing things that were so insane. Like, One Direction bought me, and also they're all werewolves, and also now we're taking down the Illuminati from the inside. For that extremely small faction of people, honestly, this book might be worth reading for you for research purposes. It's definitely not boring. That's one thing I could say about this experience. That's really all I got. I'm gonna keep going. We'll see where the night takes us. Also, I didn't mention this, and this is your trigger warning, honestly, probably for the rest of this section, that we are going to be nearing into spoiler territory. Like, I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil this book for you, but I know very well that probably the majority of you who are watching this video are not going to pick this one up. So I'm going to be a little bit looser lipped than I normally am. But one thing I respect about this book is that Allie has known basically from the jump, like from the minute that she met him for the second time, that the faceless masked man from the thirst trap TikToks is also just Josh, the roommate of the guy that she used to be hooking up with. Like, she's known the entire time, but they refuse to actually like get rid of the bit. So he'll just arrive to her house in the middle of the night wearing color contacts, and she'll be like, yeah, good try, but I can still tell that your eyes are brown, you dipshit. Or like, he forgot his voice modulator at home, so he just went the entire rest of this fun interaction that they were having doing like a Batman impression, which is just, it's so much already. But like, there's a moment where he ends up accidentally forgetting to do the voice, and in her internal monologue she's like, fucking idiot, I knew it was Josh the entire time. And then he just goes right back to doing the Batman voice. But yeah, TLDR, I appreciate that she's not stupid and that this is just kind of an appearance that they're keeping up because it's fun for them. It's better than the alternative, I'll tell you that much. But okay, now for real, I'm gonna keep going.
Hello, it's the next day. And this quote, I'm on page 184. This quote is so representative of this book. I'm losing my mind. Yeah. Okay, one moment. So for context, he is currently consensually surveilling her at work, and she's dealing with a patient who's super evil. Look out, I yelled as he reached for her. If that motherfucker hurt her, it would be one of the last things he ever did. She easily dodged him, but instead of stepping away, she got close, wearing an expression I'd never seen before. It was almost serene, but her eyes burned, like she was trying to set Brad on fire with her gaze. She looked slightly deranged, so, of course, my
Redacted.
chose that moment to enter the conversation. I didn't even try to stop my body's reaction to scary Allie, because, goddamn, watching her go full bad bitch on Brad. Watching her go full bad bitch on Brad was fucking hot. If she actually hit him, I might...
Redacted.
You know, this book just has a certain je ne sais quoi to it. Dude, this book just has... Okay, so for context, they just smashed, obviously. I mean, they didn't really smash. She smashed the handle of a knife. And then she says to him, if it's like this now, because this is so mind-blowing for her. If it's like this now, what's going to happen when I finally get you into this redacted place that I'm sure that you can imagine? He groaned, head falling back against the mattress. The poles will probably realign, and we'll be responsible for an extinction-level event. Like, what? Who came up with that, dude? What a stupid fucking thing to say. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. This book is too much for me. I'm an amateur, clearly. Dude, like, this is exactly what I mean. Look at this. The blaring of an alarm jarred me out of sleep. I shot up in bed, and for a second, I couldn't see anything. Fear punched through me. Had the contacts rolled to the back of my eyes while I slept and severed my optic nerves? Was that even possible? Allie groaned somewhere nearby. What's that sound? I don't know. I've gone blind, I said, voice laced with panic.
Fuck, that was that was the second time I'd forgotten to disguise it. What? She yelped, and the mattress shifted with her movement. Help me, I whimpered, Batman style. And yes, it was just as pathetic as it sounds. This book is just, it's so unserious. The entire thing feels like a skit. It feels like a weird SNL skit where half of the time it's honestly kind of funny, and the other half of the time you actively wish that you could throw yourself into traffic.
Wait, guys, he's self-actualizing. Somebody, actually not just somebody, Brad tried to break into her house, and listen to this. These are the thoughts that this man is having right now. God, I was a fucking asshole. Brad and I might not have had the same intentions, but we'd both broken into Allie's house, and I hated the idea that I'd caused her similar distress. What had I thought to myself less than 2 weeks ago? That I would never regret what I'd done? I wanted to go back in time and kick the shit out of my past self for it now. This kind of violation was unforgivable, and I couldn't believe Allie had given me a chance, instead of shooting me in the face like I deserved. If I had to spend the rest of our time together making it up to her, I would, happily.
Brad needs to die,
She said, her voice muffled from how tight I held her to me. That last part was not necessary for his self-actualization. I just thought it was funny. This is what I mean by this man just being, like, a truly baffling character. Me when I realized that maybe women could feel unsafe if I break into their house. Whoa! It is literally this man's first day on Earth. Like, he's having these experiences for the first time. Honestly, you can't even blame him. He doesn't know what's going on around him.
So, where do we even begin? First of all, they killed that guy. Second of all, Allie's uncle is in the mob, so they had the local mob deal with the body. Probably this will have results later that we have yet seen, but she found out that his dad is a serial killer, right? And this is the pep talk. This is the pep talk that she gives him. They're having a conversation about how he still has, like, dark inclinations inside of his soul because he wears a mask online and covers himself up in fake blood and does thirst traps on TikTok. And she says, think about it. You broke into my house and stalked me, just like your father did to his victims, but you never meant to hurt me, only bring me pleasure. You do the same thing for millions of people on the internet 3 times a week. You distract them from this shit show of a world and make them feel good instead of bad. She's talking to this man like he's fucking Nelson Mandela. What a public service he provides. What would the girls do without thrice weekly thirst traps? Where would they be? This is the pep talk that she's giving this man. She's like, well, you could have killed people like your dad, but instead you're doing thirst traps, which, like, true, don't get me wrong. One of these things is significantly better than the other one, but, like, come on, dude. He posts thirst traps on the internet and they have knives. It's a miracle he's not banned. I cannot handle this book. This is meant to be like this intensely emotional moment. I don't even know if it's meant to be this intensely emotional moment or if this entire book is just written ironically. The world is just, it's full of things that will confuse you in this life. This is one of them. Oh man, like 3 pages later, in his perspective, he says, she knew. This gorgeous, kind, sexy woman had found out about my past, and instead of running away, she dug her heels in and taught me things about myself that shifted my perspective. He's actually thinking to himself right now, he's like, wait, am I Nelson Mandela? Maybe my thirst traps are democratizing social media. Maybe this is the highest moral good that it's possible to pursue. Oh my god, okay, I'm so sorry. This entire vlog, I guess, is just going to be this fucking book. I don't know what came over me. I have a lot to say tonight. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, hello. I finished the book. It's currently raining outside pretty aggressively, so if you hear some weird noises, that's what that is. It's really windy, so sometimes it feels like there's just an entire sheet of water that comes and whacks the window all at once. But anyways, down to business. This book. A short list of things I hate. Number 1, the phrase mommy daddy time, as it relates to the fact that Josh jokes all of the time that he's like adopting her child, her like child cat, but then whenever they lock the cat out of the room, they call it mommy daddy time. Sorry, Fred, you can't come in. We're having mommy daddy time right now. I am this close to the edge. Genuinely a year off my life with every mention. There was one moment in particular towards the end. Wait. It was a long time before we emerged from my bedroom, freshly showered and starving after our marathon calorie burning session. We pulled up short after opening the door. Fred sat right on the other side of it, looking rattled. His eyes were large and glassy as he stared past our legs toward the rumpled bed, like he knew what had just gone on in there. Josh leaned close. I think we've officially scarred our son. I lifted a hand for a high five. Parental achievement unlocked. That's not even them saying the phrase mommy daddy time out loud, but it's close enough. I feel like you catch the vibe. Thing number 2, the fact that the mafia has to be involved every single time. Why is that just a cornerstone of dark romance? It's comical. Like, she's just a girl in the world. Why does she have to have ties to the mafia? But this is connected to thing number 3, which is, why does Josh have more aura than the guy that's responsible for like disposing of bodies in the mafia? This guy is literally living in a mafia mansion. And I get it, Josh looks like a serial killer, but Allie's uncle has actually fucking killed people. I just don't understand how, with one kind of creepy, unnerving smile and a couple of little like hacker boy threats, Allie's uncle, who knows how to like cut a body into 100 different pieces and scatter it across a city so that way nobody can identify it, stunning this man into silence when your greatest murder achievement is like accidentally asphyxiating a serial killer and then kind of also being scared of the body. Like, I get it, you have the technology, you can blackmail him. Oh no, he could report your crimes to the police with the tapes that he's recorded. Yeah, or Allie's uncle could just kill you. No one would find the body. There would be nothing left of you to press send on the email to the police with this like tape recorder that you made. I don't know why that conversation pissed me off as much as it did, but there's something about it that was just such a joke. But the 4th thing that I hate, related, why was the mafia, which was inclusive, by the way, of like covering up a murder and then also finding out that the person that was murdered was keeping murder victims inside of cat litter in the basement of his house? Why was that entire subplot somehow also the most boring part of this book? How is it even possible that you lost me with that? I don't understand. I feel like I've really gone through the full spectrum of human emotion during this reading experience. I would say avoid this book if you would like characters, if you want a plot that is really at all reasonable. If it is important to you that the prose that you read is devoid of millennial humor, this will also not work for you. But with all of that said, I do also have a grudging respect for this book that has been building throughout the reading experience and was challenged, I would say, by maybe the last 30%, but it's still there. We still got it. First of all, the relationship dynamic. Some people just deserve each other, and 2 of them are the main characters inside of this book. I like that even though he commits crimes, she justifies it to herself as being, well, I did ask him to commit the crimes, so I guess it's okay. Because honestly, I mean, she's not even like completely wrong. Like, he would still be deranged if he did this in real life, but in a way she had consented. Who would I be to rob her of that joy? The easy comparison to this book is Butcher and Blackbird, and I only read the first book in that series. I think there are 3 now, but like, I know what's good for me, so I only read the first one. I liked this one more. The vibe was better, I think, between the couple. I actually did buy that the male main character cared about the female main character beyond her just being hot, even though she was also really hot. And this is definitely pretty kinky, but like, there were parts of Butcher and Blackbird that genuinely made me feel like I was not tall enough to ride that ride, and I did not feel that way about this book. I do think that this was funnier than Butcher and Blackbird, but again, I mean, with the humor, honestly, I'm kind of torn because half of me thinks that it was self-aware the entire time, and the other half of me truly has no idea, because there are a lot of jokes that do not hit, like literally everything, again, to do with the cat. And like, I mean, I'm sure I read other quotes during my descent into darkness last night, but at the same time, just the way that these characters, they're fucking horn dog brains, the inanity of the circumstances in this book. There was something extremely entertaining to that. I'll be the first to admit it. But with all of that said, honestly, I think that if you liked Butcher and Blackbird, you're probably also going to like this one. Tonally, I think that they are trying to do kind of similar things, but this book somehow, despite the mafia, this book is a little bit more grounded, I think. Probably this gets somewhere in the range of 2 to 2.5 stars from me. Honestly, it might have been higher. It might have been like a 3, if not 4. Really just the entire ending sequence being the way that it was. Who would I recommend this to? I have like very specific responses to that. I mean, I do think that if you like dark romance, you'll probably like this one. It feels like pretty unintimidating to me. Also, anybody who is like the book talk historian for your friend group, where you are like taking the bullet consistently, so that way your friends don't have to, and you can just like tell them about all of the insane shit that you read. This is gonna give you great content for that. It's not a book where nothing happens. I can tell you that much. I mean, also, if you're just the kind of person to want to read something that's kind of fringe and stupid, and definitely entertaining entertaining at multiple points in the story. Honestly, there are parts of this book that are kind of charming and sweet. I mean, I think if you go in with like literally zero expectations and you have experiences in the trenches of Wattpad, you might kind of have a good time. It's like a turn your brain off for 400 pages at the beach type book. Know yourself before you pick it up, okay? That's my warning to you. That's my gift to you. But moving on, in an effort to recover from the experience that I've just subjected myself to over the past couple of days, I thought it would be kind of fun to read a monster romance, which this is actually my first one. I've never done this before. I mean, I've definitely read my fair share of like monster romance adjacent fanfic AUs, which will remain nameless at this time. Honestly, to be frank with you, I don't even know for sure if this is a monster romance. I know that this author writes monster romances, and I also know that there are monster romances in this series, but I don't know in this case if demon is just like a synonym for fae, or if he's actually got like some different stuff going on. But I guess we'll see. I mean, this book is super short. It's like 250 pages, and I think it has like half as many words per page as Lights Out. Like, I don't know if you can see the difference, but to me, this is extreme. And I don't have anything to do tonight. So honestly, I might blow through this entire thing in one sitting. We'll see. Either way, you will be the first to know all of the myriad thoughts, feelings, and opinions I have on this wonderful third book we're exploring together. My Emily Henry section at the beginning of this video was just, it was so serious in comparison to everything that this video has become. I'm so sorry. This has no like tonal consistency at all, but this is the world that we live in, okay? This is the path that I've chosen. I'm gonna go read this book. I'll see you soon. This might surprise you, but that time I got drunk and saved a demon is in fact about that time that the main character got really drunk, and then as she's walking home that night, she ends up coming across a demon who is trapped underneath a ton of branches. So she debranches him. They have a very brief violent altercation because it turns out that in this realm, the goddess who is supposed to be protecting everybody from demons, she's actually a lich who is responsible for like mind controlling demons and making them really violent. Even though, I mean, there's an implication that they would already be like a little bit violent and insane, they're definitely more so because of the lich goddess. But fortunately for our main character, whose name I have kept hidden from you up until this point because it's just so on the nose, she lives on a cinnamon farm, and while she's running away from the demon guy that's trying to kill her, she like takes a branch and hits him with it, and it turns out that cinnamon is the only way of freeing the demons from the mind control of the lich. So she's able to cure him in that moment, and after a couple of threats that he makes to her, because he is still like evil aligned, even if he's not actively trying to murder her, they embark together on a quest to destroy the lich and free demonkind. Oh, and the main character's name, by the way, is Cinnamon. Like, she lives on a cinnamon farm, and her name is Cinnamon. She goes by Sin. All of her siblings are named after other spices, except for one who's dead before the start of the story, whose name is Cherry. And like, I can only assume that she died because she didn't fit the patterns. Is that mean to say? I'm obviously wearing a different outfit than I was yesterday, so I lied to you. I did not get through this entire book in one night. I read like the first 10 pages and then got entirely sidetracked by a group FaceTime with my friends. But I had to drive somewhere that was kind of far away today, so I loaded up the audiobook, which, by the way, like I've never done in my entire life. This is not something that just like casually happens for me. I have always had personally a really strong preference for reading things physically, so I've actually never listened to as much of an audiobook before as I did today. So that was a fresh experience. And honestly, I think that it was the right move because the narrator is doing a really good job at making something that I think I would have had a problem with if I were reading this physically. I mean, I guess we'll see now that I'm going back to the book. But she's made something that is honestly kind of high risk a lot better, and that is that the main character in this book definitely talks like she's just a 21st century romance novel protagonist, as opposed to, you know, like a spice farmer in a fantasy world living in a village that is consistently under siege by demons. Girly is using like TikTok slang. There was a moment in this book that Cinnamon actually said the word sus out loud in like a fantasy world, you know, so that's kind of the energy that she has. But the way that the narrator has been able to deliver her lines and her internal monologue has honestly made it not only bearable, but also like pretty funny sometimes. And I don't know if I'm just saying that because I'm fried. I did not get that much sleep last night, but there were moments in the car when I was like snapping my fingers. This is a fun time. And I'm not sure if I would have had that experience if I were reading this on paper. So keep that in mind. I'm keeping that in mind, I guess, as I go through the rest of this book, because I am a little bit afraid that without the narrator to buffer out the jokes in this book, they're just not gonna have the same kind of flavor that they had for me earlier in the car. Also worth noting that even though Sin has that very contemporary romance flavor to her, that is juxtaposed against the male main character, Fallon, who talks sometimes like he's about to give her 3 riddles, and if she doesn't get them all right, then he'll like take her first unborn child. This book is just so silly, but in such a different way than Lights Out. Like, not comparable experiences, but comparable feelings. They're provoking similar emotions inside of me right now. This man was also like just so suddenly filthy. Like, this isn't a plot spoiler, but I guess trigger warning for like something that happens in chapter 6. This last chapter that I was listening to in my car, I felt like I should turn it down when I would like pass people. I made eye contact 10 minutes away from my house with like a lady while I was listening to this man say shit like, "How many points will you give me when I taste your redacted?" All redacted. Way through it slowly, getting redacted until I found the little jewel of your redacted. And I would circle redacted until I feel it's redacted. I'll redacted until you squeezed these redacted around my head. Just imagine me making eye contact with a random woman above the age of 55 in a nearby car until you've grabbed me by the horns and guided me. Redacted. I'll redact you then, but not enough to give you a reprieve. I want you begging, you see. I'll do it so gently, so delicately, that you stop being so fucking careful with me and show me that fiery hellion I know you've been hiding. And we're both at a red light. We've just made kind of awkward eye contact. This woman smiles at me. I smile back because what the fuck am I supposed to do? The only way to cope with that experience of just a feeling perceived, even though you know that you're not being perceived, is just to assume that she too is listening to Smut on Ox right now, which honestly is not even like that unrealistic. And I'm only on chapter 7. Like, they haven't even done anything yet and he's talking like this. But yeah, when they're not doing that, they're on their little like demon romp adventure. I've had a good time so far. I have to say, I'm hopeful that it'll still work in black and white text on paper. I don't really know, to be honest with you. Again, I'm being so serious. Like, I know this sounds made up. This is the first audiobook I've ever listened to this extent. Like, I think my previous record was like 1 chapter. And this one I listened to a solid like 2 full hours, I think. So this is new terrain for me. I don't really know how to feel, but I'll give you more information as soon as I get a little bit further into this book, as soon as I know what I'm in for in the back half, okay? Sound good? Dude, she's like freeing the slaves right now. Like 20 pages from where we just left off. Dude, is this book a reverse harem and nobody told me? Could that be it? Because I will say I was a little bit concerned that this was not actually a monster romance, given the fact that currently the male lead, Fallon, he's kind of just like a big, gigantic, sexy mountain man, except also with horns. Like that's kind of like the only thing that he's had going on. Also, he can do like fire. He can spawn fire with his fingers, which I guess is kind of cool. But like really does kind of seem to just be a guy. But now joining the community, we have not only a werewolf, a shifter, but also a fucking snake man. He's like a centaur if on the bottom you have a snake and on the top you have a male swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated. That's the vibe of the third guy, which that one personally at this time, I can't say I'm into it, but you know, I could have my mind changed. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's starting to look like she's going to have multiple boyfriends. That seems to be the direction that we're headed in. And honestly, good for her. She's doing her time right now in the trenches for demon kind.
Good morning. Turns out only 1 boyfriend. Just the one, apparently. That's enough. I think that all of the other monster men, if I had to guess, are going to be the protagonists during the rest of the series. Not this one, because 1 is enough. And he is also, like, definitely a monster. I know that was in question last night as well, but no longer. Things have been revealed to us.
Okay, hello. I'm done. Honestly, this was a fun time. I rate books based on how much I like them, obviously, but that is like half how good I think the book is, but it's also half how successful I think the book is at accomplishing whatever its own goals were, right? Because a romance novel is going to have fundamentally different goals and ambitions than an epic fantasy series, than a moving historical portrait of wartime. You know what I mean? Like, they're all trying to accomplish different things, and that is why Lights Out from earlier in this video might have gotten like 3 stars from me if it hadn't derailed in the second half. Was that book good on paper in terms of plot, prose, characterization compared to a lot of the other 3.5 star books I read on this channel? No, it's not. And it's really easy to poke holes in that if you're looking to do critical analysis. But at the end of the day, the author was not trying to write something that is that serious. And unless you've been like lied to, you are not picking that book up expecting it to be a serious masterpiece. You're both in on the joke. You're both kind of just there to have a fun time. And it can be fun to peel back those layers and apply serious critique to an unserious project, right? Like, take it from somebody who watches a boatload of reality TV. There is a lot to learn about ourselves and about society by wading through the slop and like seeing what we can find. And in addition to just being a really entertaining genre of media for me, that kind of video essay style critique is also really valuable because as a reader, it's really important that you can tell the difference between legitimately good, well-crafted worlds and characters and then something that has a lot of problems but is also a really fun time. And some people, some warriors in wading through all of those weeds lose the ability to just have like a really, really fun time with something that's kind of unserious. But that's not me, at least not yet, because finally circling back to that time I got drunk and saved a demon, I liked this. I found it entertaining all the way through. And it did have some things that might have pissed me off if I were in a more bitter mood, like the world building. If you think about it for longer than 2 seconds, it completely shatters. Like, this is just one tiny example, but the village that Cinnamon is from and the nearby city, they're literally in different technological eras. To the extent that when Cinnamon sees running water for the first time at like an inn or something, she's not only shocked because she's never seen it before, she's shocked because she didn't know that it was possible. And you might want to explain this away as Cinnamon is just from like a village that is inaccessible to the rest of civilization. But no, they have merchants going in and out all of the time. Like, her brothers will go and bring their cinnamon spices to nearby cities. So they've been there. But somehow nobody in Cinnamon's village has ever even complained to her that they wish that they could have running water, even though there is trade and like intermingling. And obviously this is not a big deal. I mean, the book basically instantly moves on from this fact to do other things, but it's full of stuff like that, where if you think about it for longer than 2 seconds, it might start to make you kind of mad. So you choose not to instead. People in this book also will just within seconds abandon their entire worldview. Like, everything they have ever known about the world and their place within the world, it's gone, it's changed. Cinnamon and Fallon are mostly compelling as characters just because they play into all of the tropes that you've come to expect from a book like this. Like, you got the 7-foot-tall mountain man ex this tiny sassy protagonist. Oh, they're bantering. Oh, he wants to do some murder, but no, she won't let him because murdering's bad. And that also brings up some holes because Cinnamon doesn't want Fallon to kill people, at least not innocent people, but also apparently burning down an entire city is completely okay as long as he looks hot while doing it. And their relationship development overall is like flash in the pan, instant. And then also retcons later in the book to take an even more instantaneous shape than we were aware of it taking at the time. But the thing you have to understand with all of that is that, at least for me, when I was reading this, it felt like the author was in on the joke the entire time. It felt to me like she knew what she was doing. It felt like she was purposefully ignoring the things that would maybe make it a better fantasy book, a better romance story, in favor of making it a sillier and zanier adventure, because that was her goal when she was writing it. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was charming. There is a ton of shit happening the entire time. Also, just so many micro lore drops that don't matter at all except for the bit. I have seen some people on TikTok describe this book as cozy fantasy, and the more that I hear people describe things as cozy fantasy, the less I'm sure I actually know what cozy fantasy is. There are people inside of this book that get literally ripped into 2 pieces. There are arms torn from the frames of our enemies, but at the same time, you know it's going to be fine. You know that the family is going to make it out relatively unscathed. So in that respect, I mean, maybe that's cozy. I kind of found it cozy, to be honest with you, but I've never once thought that my standards for that were like normal for other human beings. I feel like if you are going through a stressful moment in your life, this book could be fun. It's short, it's zany, it not only requires, but also rewards as few thoughts as possible. And if you want more substance than that, you should probably just go somewhere other than like campy genre monster romance. But if you want something that is casual and fun, this could be your girl. And we could split hairs on the inconsistent morality of this book, on the thematic implications of the choices of the main characters, on the crimes that everybody kind of commits together, or you could just have a fun time if a fun time is what you need to have. But I liked it. This is probably going to get 3 stars from me, which is a fairly enthusiastic rating for, again, a book that does not make any real effort to have like a reasonable plot or compelling character arcs. But you know what? It was a good time. Also, as a last note, I think, prefer this as an audiobook. I read like the majority of the first half while driving and then also while doing a couple of chores last night after I filmed that update, and then I read most of the second half on page this morning. And the narrator was just really good. I don't know. I mean, I didn't have to listen to her narrate any of the truly explicit stuff, of which there were several options in the back half, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how well a man saying what this man said in this book in the cold light of day would have worked for me. But overall, I liked the audio experience. It was a good time. My introduction to not only audiobooks, but also monster romances. This was an entertaining one. Although a part of me hopes that the next monster romance that I read is a little bit braver, because yeah, he was a monster, as we learned, but he did still kind of just give human with horns the entire time. I just kind of feel like we could have gone somewhere a little bit more mystical and magical than we did. But anyways, the last book that I'm reading for this video, let me grab it. Just to like off-ramp from the experience we've had together in this video so far, this is I Hope This Doesn't Find You by Anne Liang. As big of a tonal shift as you could possibly imagine, but this is a young adult romance, so ideally we will just have some kindness and joy and yearning in these pages. Nothing too much more than that. I feel like I've had enough, but these are the plans for the afternoon, so I'm gonna get into it. I Hope This Doesn't Find You follows a girl named Sadie, who is your prototypical high-achieving, people-pleasing valedictorian, and the book is basically To All the Boys I've Loved Before, except instead of letters accidentally getting sent out to past and current crushes, whenever she gets walked over by somebody or somebody pisses her off, Sadie will write these extremely angry emails that she never sends to anybody. They're just all saved inside of her drafts on Gmail. They're basically diary entries, venting out all of the frustrations that she has that she never lets herself express, because in real life, she's supposed to be really wholesome and nice and helpful, except then all of her email drafts from the past 10 years, all like 57 of them, they're all sent out to her enemies. And sometimes, depending on the email, they're like reply all sent to the entire school. So it's not even just the person who is the source of her ire that's getting the email, it's also everybody else in her grade. And by a lot, the person that she has written the most of these emails to over the past 10 years is her academic rival and co-school captain, basically co-school president, this kid named Julius, who she has been competing with during her entire time at this private school, ever since they like dueled to the death in 3rd grade dodgeball. And in the wake of all of this, she and Julius are like forced by their principal to spend more time together, because it's like private school optics or whatever. I don't know, I guess they're like worried about two school captains existing who hate each other so obviously, so they have to spend a bunch of school mandated cooperation time learning how to get along. And it turns out that Julius is actually one of the only people who seems to not completely hate this new side of Sadie that has been shown to the world through these emails. I'm about 40% or so of the way through this book so far, and so far I'm having a good time. Even apart from the obvious Lara Jean comparison, this book reminds me a lot of reading the likes of like 13 Little Blue Envelopes and Rainbow Rowell as a teenager. Just those kind of silly but also really heartwarming young adult books that make you believe for a fraction of a second that maybe the world is not actually a cold and dead place. And like, where is this going to go? You know with 100% certainty. It has been obvious to me how all of this happened since basically the moment it happened. And I could sit here and read the bones of how all of these conversations with Sadie and Julius are going to play out that will eventually lead to them realizing that they actually have more in common than they ever could have possibly imagined. But that's okay. I don't need to be surprised. I just need to enjoy the journey. And this has been really cute so far. Sadie reminds me a lot of how I felt in high school, unfortunately, except I had it a lot less together than she does. I was way more on the wave of doing homework in 1st period before it was due in 3rd period, and like waking up at 4 a.m. to study for tests that I should have been studying for weeks. But I also, despite that, still maintained that same level of like a 92% on a test is the same thing as me failing. And it actually means that I've like disappointed my entire lineage, which I can tell you from experience that with my inability to do anything in advance, pretty bad combination when it comes to mental health outcomes, also like physical health outcomes. Sleep was not a thing that I knew well in high school. But yeah, a lot of the feelings that she's describing in this book are like really reminding me of what my high school experience was like. And books like that always hit pretty hard for me because, I mean, I'm still dealing with the aftershocks of growing up that way even now. And of course, I do have 3% more perspective than I did when I was 17. I do know that I was able to make it through doing everything that I was doing then in order to do everything that I'm doing now, which does help a little bit in terms of putting to bed those thoughts of like what my potential could have been if I was perfect all of the time, which I know now was completely unrealistic in retrospect. effects, but felt extremely real when I was 17. Also, hated conflict. Hated feeling like I was failing the people around me. Even the parts that I found less directly relatable have still really been compelling parts of her character. We don't know a ton about Julius at this juncture, but I feel like there's stuff there. I mean, again, you can kind of smell where this entire thing is going.
Dude, this scene, I'm losing it.
I always did like your hair. I thought you hated it, he says. His voice is scratchy, like he swallowed sand. I frown, tug absently at the strand. Did I say that? You did, in your email. And then, with his eyes on me, without having to pause or think twice, he recites. From the bottom of my heart, I really hope your comb breaks and you run out of whatever expensive hair products you've been using to make your hair appear deceptively soft when I'm sure it's not. Because there's nothing soft about you, anywhere at all. They're my words, but on his lips they sound different. Intimate. Confessional. How do you remember all that? I ask. I have all your emails memorized word for word, he says, then instantly looks like he regrets having spoken. You do? My mouth falls open. No, he scowls. No. Forget I said that.
He's obsessed with her. What a dweeb. What a dweeb. I love them. This just in, it kept going. Get a load of this.
So, tell me, why is it always me? His brows crease. What kind of question is that? Why is it me? The words come out slurred, swollen on my tongue. I wave my hands around with growing frustration. Why do you put all of your energy into making my life difficult? What did I ever do to make you hate me so much? It's been happening since the day we met each other. With dodgeball, with the spelling quiz in year 6, with our history project, with everything. Why do you always single me out?
Because, he says quietly, a curious expression on his face. I've never seen him so serious, so sincere.
You're the only person worth paying attention to.
Me when they're sharing truths, me when they're emotionally honest. I would have lost my mind reading this book when I was 16. I would have been making like the fan casts on Tumblr with the care and finesse that you can really only possess when you kin one of the characters and wish that their life was yours. Like I can't help the feeling of intense nostalgia that I'm experiencing right now.
Okay, I'm done. I cranked through this afternoon. Again, I would have been feral for this at 16. Like, I think foaming at the mouth. But even as I am now, I had a really good time. This book feels like it was written to be a teen movie. That is the vibe of the entire story. It's got the silly forced proximity situations, the cheeky banter, the will they, won't they yearning that kind of infuriates you because most of the conflict in this book is just they won't fucking talk to each other, even though it would solve like 90% of the problems in their lives. But all of that stuff is, to its core, classic teenage rom-com. So if you like those movies, if you enjoy a Disney Channel original, I can almost guarantee you that you will like this book. Honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of The Candy Jar on Netflix. Don't quote me on that because I have not seen that movie for like 3 years, so I don't even know why I'm making this comparison, but I feel like I felt some similar emotions to that reading this book. And it definitely has like a pretty similar teen drama, academic rivals to lover premise going on. And school and college and academy settings in books are such a natural environment for that, by the way, for like a real bona fide rivals to lovers. Having 10 full years of history with somebody where you're competing and pissing them off and gloating whenever you win and getting annoyed whenever you lose, like usually, in my opinion, enemies to lovers doesn't really work very well in contemporary romance, just because honestly, it's like just never really that serious. Much to my disappointment, by the way, because I love a relationship dynamic that spans the whole spectrum of human emotion. But usually I feel like it's just, yeah, he was kind of mean to me one time and we've disliked each other ever since. But oh no, now I'm realizing that he's hot, cue romance plotline. And that's not the vibe of this. The two main characters, they've been competing for a long time and there's a lot of resentment there. Also, they're young, so naturally they're going to be worse at sorting out complicated feelings like that. But also, because they have always competed with each other so much, you also get this very like, we bring out the best in each other because we are able to challenge the other person sort of atmosphere that comes out, which makes the relationship feel more authentic and believable. And I thought it was sweet. I liked this book a lot. My biggest issue with this, I think, and I remember feeling this way as well with another young adult romance that I read relatively recently and really liked. I wish there had been one more chapter or just an epilogue or something, because after everything crescendos, you get a little bit at the end of the book, but even apart from wanting a little bit more of a happy ending for them as a couple, I feel like Julius's conflict in this book just felt kind of unfinished. Like it's solved by the power of love off page. I mean, honestly, Sadie's conflict is also kind of just power of love away, say, but like at least you're seeing that conversation. And again, this book is really teen rom-com coded, and these are things that would have just fixed themselves at the end of a teen movie because like they'll self-destruct if it's over 100 minutes. But because this is a book, not a movie, you do get a little bit more space to flesh out those feelings a bit more than we got. Honestly, this is kind of similar to the problem I had earlier at like the beginning of this video, what feels like lifetimes ago with A Great Big Beautiful Life, but just a little bit more development for them and their families at the end, plus a slightly more complete conclusion to their love story. And I think you have like a top tier YA romance book, but as it is, even without any of that, even without Julius, I think especially fleshed out all of the way, you still like him. You still like his relationship with Sadie. I think I'm going to give this somewhere in the ballpark of 4 stars, but this is like an enthusiastic 4 stars because if you are already a fan of YA romance, this is such a safe bet. Like, I think you will for sure really enjoy this. It's not life-changing, but it is really cute. So if you have like a free rainy afternoon and you want to just read something super sweet, I think that total I got through this in like 4 hours. And I don't normally blast through books that quickly, but that's the kind of story that this was for me. But that's it. We've done it. Wow. Wow, what a roller coaster of a video. Honestly, even though I didn't get any 5-star books from this video, I would still say that this was fairly successful. I definitely wasn't bored by anything, which is normally sometimes the problem when I do a TikTok romance reading vlog. None of these books were boring, even when they had other things going on. But if you liked this video, let me know. Let me know what you have been reading recently in the world of romance. I would love to see. Always looking for more recommendations. You got to keep your finger on the pulse here at Newly Nova. But yeah, another quarter, another expedition into book talk. We made it, guys. We did it. That's really it. That's everything I have to say. Bye!